All right, so you're looking to shake things up a bit with your sweet potato casserole.
Oh, okay.
You want something, a little more exciting than the usual overly sweet version for your next get-together.
Hmm.
Well, we found a source that's got some really interesting ideas for reimagining this classic dish.
Yeah.
It's a recipe, but also like commentary.
Hmm.
They really focus on letting the natural sweetness of the sweet potato, be the star.
I see.
And they're all about getting that perfect crunchy topping,
That's always a good thing, right?
right? Nobody wants a soggy topping.
Exactly.
So this source really kind of pushes back against the traditional, like, super sugary approach.
Hmm.
And it made me wonder, like, why are so many recipes so heavy-handed with the sugar?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Is it like tradition, or are we just afraid of the sweet potato's natural flavor?
Maybe a little of both.
Right.
It's almost like we don't trust the sweet potato to be sweet enough on its own.
Hmm.
Then there's the whole texture thing.
Yep.
Nobody wants a mushy casserole.
Nobody.
This source really advocates for boiling the sweet potatoes,
Okay.
which I gotta admit isn't the first method that comes to mind.
You usually see roasting or baking, right?
Yeah. So what's the deal with boiling? Does it lead to a better texture, especially since we're going for less sweet?
Well, boiling, gives you a lot of control over the cooking.
Okay.
You can get that perfect tenderness without overcooking, which is important, especially if you're not using a ton of sugar to cover up any imperfections.
Oh, I see.
Plus, boiling can help get rid of some of that starch, which can make for a less mushy texture.
So it's a win-win. Less mush, more flavor.
Exactly.
Okay, so it seems like, every detail here is about letting that sweet potato really shine.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about a topping that's a bit controversial.
Okay.
Marshmallows.
Ah, yes.
Our source is pretty firmly anti-marshmallow. And I have to admit, I kind of agree. But is there any way, any world in which marshmallows could work in this, like, reimagined casserole? Or are they just, too much?
Well, the source might be against them,
Yeah.
but I think there's room for nuance.
Okay.
It's not necessarily about banning marshmallows altogether.
I see.
It's more about like using them thoughtfully.
Okay, so how would you use them softly?
Imagine like a few mini marshmallows, lightly toasted, just a hint of sweetness
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of texture.
But not enough to overpower the other flavors.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see the possibility here.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the marshmallow itself.
Right.
It's how you use it.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to spices. Our source loves them.
Okay.
Cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, those are the classics. But what else could work with sweet potato without, taking over the flavor?
Well, there are a lot of options. We could, think outside the traditional warm spices.
Okay,
Like,
what?
how about a touch of cardamom? A little warmth, a little citrusy note,
Ooh, interesting.
or even a pinch of black pepper. Just a hint of heat to cut through the sweetness.
Black pepper. That's not what I expected.
It can be really good.
Okay, I'm intrigued. But we can't forget the topping. Our source is all about the crunch, pecans specifically.
Mm-hmm.
What makes pecans so perfect for this?
Hmm.
And could we use other nuts or even something completely different?
Well, pecans have that, that buttery flavor and that really nice crunch.
Yeah,
Goes so well with the sweetness of the sweet potato.
absolutely.
But for something different, how about toasted hazelnuts?
Yeah.
They have that kind of earthy, almost chocolatey flavor.
Oh, interesting.
Should add some real complexity. Or if you're feeling adventurous, what about a crumble?
A crumble?
Yeah, with a little sea salt.
Ooh, a salty crumble.
Yeah.
That's never heard of that before.
It's really good.
Okay, before we get too lost in topping land, let's go back to the sweet and savory balance. The source really emphasizes that. So how do we get there? Specific ingredients or just being careful with the seasoning?
Well, it's both, really.
Eh?
Think about adding a touch of acidity, brighten up the sweetness.
Like lemon juice?
Yeah, lemon juice. Or even a little orange zest.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget salt.
Salt.
Just a pinch. It can really bring out those other flavors.
So it's all about making sure that sweetness isn't the only thing you taste.
Right. Exactly. It's about creating, a whole symphony of flavors.
This is already sounding like so much more than just a basic sweet potato casserole.
It is.
I can't wait to see what else this recipe has in store.
Me too. And speaking of balance,
Yeah.
our source, they really emphasize boiling the sweet potatoes.
Hmm.
Not roasting, not baking,
Right.
boiling.
It's not what you usually see.
Right.
So why boiling? What's the advantage?
Well, you get a lot more control with boiling.
Yeah.
You can cook them just right,
Yeah.
make sure they're tender, not overcooked,
And that's important.
especially when you're not relying on a ton of sugar.
Right, to fix any mistakes.
Exactly.
Fix that.
And plus, boiling, it helps with the starch.
Oh, yeah.
Gets rid of some of it.
Okay.
So you end up with a lighter, less dense texture.
So boiling, it's all about, like, showcasing the sweet potato.
yeah, letting it be itself.
I like that.
Natural sweetness,
Okay, so we've got the sweet potato sorted.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the other stuff in the base?
Like what?
The butter, the eggs, the milk.
Ooh, right.
Those are pretty standard, but I'm wondering if their roles change when you're not using as much sugar.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because they become even more important,
Oh.
without all that sugar.
Yeah.
The richness of the butter, the creaminess from the eggs and milk, those things are essential.
To make it, like, satisfying.
Exactly.
Interesting. So they're doing double duty, flavor and texture.
That's right.
All right, let's go back to spices for a second.
Sure.
The source is all about experimenting.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a point where it's too much?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balance,
Yeah.
too little, and the casserole is bland, too
Yeah.
much, and you lose the sweet potato flavor.
So how do you find that balance?
Start small.
Okay.
Build gradually.
Like, what do you mean?
Start with those warm spices.
Cinnamon, nutmeg.
Yeah. And then just add a little bit of something else, taste it, see how it is.
Taste as you go. That's always good advice,
It is.
especially when you're, trying something new.
Absolutely.
Okay. Toppings again.
Yeah.
We talked about the cans, hazelnuts,
Mm-hmm.
that salty, crumble.
Right.
But are there other nuts that could work?
Sure. There are other options.
Like what?
Pistachios.
Oh, yeah.
They add a nice pop of color.
And a flavor?
Yeah, sweet and savory.
I like that.
Or for something a little more rustic, how about pumpkin seeds?
Pumpkin seeds.
The toast.
Toasted, of course.
I love that. It's like tying it back to the main ingredient.
Okay, before we go too crazy with toppings,
Mm-hmm.
let's go back to the sweet and savory thing.
Yeah.
How do we make sure those flavors work together?
It's all about layers.
Layers.
You want to use ingredients that contrast with the sweetness.
We talked about acidity.
Right, lemon juice, orange zest.
Mm-hmm.
But you could also add something savory.
Savory. Like what?
A little Parmesan cheese in the topping.
Parmesan in the topping.
Yeah, just a little bit.
That's a new one.
It's good.
I'm seeing now, it's like, you got to think outside the box with this casserole.
Yeah, break the rules a little.
It's not just your grandma's recipe anymore.
That's right.
This is almost like a whole philosophy,
It is, kind of.
not just a recipe.
I'm excited to see what else we can learn from this source.
Me too.
Yeah.
So, we've been talking about this recipe,
Yeah.
and the source mentions it being great for, like, gatherings, holidays,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always a side dish, right?
Yeah, usually.
Could it be, like, the main event?
Oh, I think so.
Really?
Yeah, it's got all those complex flavors, the texture.
Yeah.
It could definitely stand on its own.
So what would you pair it with? Like to
Hmm.
make a whole meal?
Something light.
Okay.
Something savory.
I'm thinking roasted chicken
Oh, that'd be good.
or like a big salad.
Yeah.
That sweet potato against something savory.
Would be delicious.
It'd look amazing on the table.
Right.
All that golden brown
Yeah.
topping.
Pecans, hazelnuts,
Even the crumble.
the salty crumble.
Yeah. It'd be a centerpiece.
It would.
It's funny how, like, we get stuck thinking about dishes in a certain way,
Mm.
and then you realize, oh, it could be something totally different.
Just need to change your perspective.
That's what I love about exploring food.
Me too.
Always something new to discover.
So we started this deep dive because you wanted to, shake up your sweet potato casserole routine.
And I think we've given you a lot to think about.
Yeah, we've gone way beyond the basic recipe.
No more overly sweet, boring casserole.
Mm,
We talk about why you don't need all that sugar.
the different ways to cook the sweet potatoes
All those spices.
and toppings. So many toppings.
And most importantly, I think
Yeah,
we've shown you that sweet potato casserole can be more than just a side dish.
it can be the star of the show.
So go out there,
Experiment.
try new things,
Don't be afraid to get creative.
and let us know what you come up with.
Yeah, we'd love to hear about your culinary adventures.
Until next time.
Happy cooking.